What is going on, guys? Papacy back with a brand new series for you guys, and in this series we'll be taking a look at some of the worst Pokemon in the game, discussing why they are so bad, if they are completely useless, or if they have some sort of viable use to them. Each Pokemon will be rated on a scale 1 to 5 based on their offense, defense, versatility, move pool, and overall viability. If a Pokemon doesn't excel in any of those categories, then it is deemed to be a bad Pokemon. If one of the Pokemon discussed in this series happens to be one of your favorite Pokemon, I'm sorry, but just because it is your favorite doesn't mean it's safe from being one of these videos. If you guys enjoy this and want to see more, make sure you subscribe and leave a like, and also let me know in the comments down below what Pokemon you want to see featured in this series in the future. The first Pokemon to be featured in this series is going to be Ledian. Now, the reason why I chose Ledian to be the first Pokemon for this series was because one of my most hated on videos is a video titled Why Ledian is the Worst Pokemon. It was uploaded about 3 years ago, and in the video, I send out my lead Ledian against my opponent's lead Electivire. I go straight for the sub, skillfully dodge a Rock Slide somehow, so good on you, Ledian, for doing that. Go for a Focus Punch thinking, you know, I am adamant, I do have the Iron Fist ability, Focus Punch is a very strong move, it should do a lot of damage, right? I do less than half, and then I go for a Drain Punch. I think at that point he's at like 50% health, which is just abysmal. And then the Electivire proceeds to body me with a Rock Slide. Now, the video got a lot of hate because I was, quote, using Ledian wrong, even though what I was trying to do was showcase how little damage a Pokemon that's intended to be a physical attacker does. So, with that out of the way, let's take a closer look at Ledian. Now, Ledian is a bug flying type, which from a defensive standpoint is not the best thing in the world. You're immune to ground, which is kind of cool. You strongly resist fighting in grass. You resist bug, which is something to keep in mind. However, your weaknesses are just not good. You're weak to electric, fire, flying, and probably the nail in the coffin for Ledian is being quad weak to rock. Now, if you look at Ledian's stats, you can see it's kind of, I don't really know what it's supposed to be, to be honest, but we have 55 HP, only 35 attack, 50 defense, 55 special attack, 110 speed def, which is good. That's good on you, Ledian. You have a stat above 100, and 85 speed, which is somewhat usable, especially for a Pokemon like this. Now, one of the most confusing things about Ledian, based on its stat distribution and what it's supposed to be, is that Ledian looks like it's supposed to be a boxing ladybug, meaning it should be a physical attacker, but it only has a 35 attack stat. It gets Iron Fist and some punch moves, which suggests that it should be a physical attacker, but again, you only have 35 attack and only 55 special attack, so offensively, you really have nothing. I don't really know what they were thinking when they made this Pokemon, but it's definitely one of the worst early route bug types. You look at things like Beautyfly, and they're all pretty usable, especially early on in the game, but I really don't see a situation why you'd ever use Ledian. Especially in the Johto games, where the first Gym-Leader is a flying type, you don't have the advantage of bringing a Ledian at all. Now, this video isn't designed to be entirely negative. Let's focus on some of the positives on Ledian. Now, you do have 110 speed def, which is actually a very good stat. You get dual screens, you get roost, so you definitely have some defensive utility. It also has a decent move pool, and all of its abilities are somewhat decent. Now, there isn't really one ability that's much better, but Iron Fist is a decent ability, Swarm can be usable, as well as Early Bird, which could potentially be usable as well. You also get some decent utility moves in Baton Pass, Agility, Swords Dance, Substitute, Encore, Tailwind, U-Turn, and Knockoff, so I can potentially see a sub-SD Baton Pass set being somewhat usable. However, there might be better options out there. Its overall coverage and move pool is actually pretty decent. You get Thunder Punch, you get Ice Punch, you get Bug and Flying Stab, obviously. You definitely have a decent amount of offensive coverage. And of course, the last positive is it has a pretty cool design. You look at Ledian, I think it's a very cool looking Pokemon. Kind of looks like a boxer, looks like a Power Ranger, definitely a cool looking Pokemon. And now on to the negatives, which unfortunately there are more negatives than positive. Now, from a VGC standpoint, Ledian has virtually no use because pretty much everything relevant in the VGC metagame this season is going to have some sort of coverage for Ledian. Now, it is kind of nice you don't have to focus on Stealth Rocks in VGC as much, so that does help Ledian a bit, but pretty much everything is going to have some sort of Rock coverage or Ice coverage or Fire coverage. You see it on pretty much every Pokemon. It's also unable to do damage at all with its pitiful offensive stats, and although 110 speed def is nice, only 55 HP and 50 defense isn't that great. To put things into perspective, this thing has roughly the same bulk as Mega Alakazam. Now, of course, Ledian can have an item, but Mega Alakazam really isn't a Pokemon that I would describe as a Pokemon you want to use as a bulky sort of set. Now, in terms of Smogon singles play, this thing can maybe do something a lot of the lower tiers, but having that 4 times weakness to rock, no offense whatsoever, and not being a very great defensive Pokemon, this thing really can't do that much. Stealth Rocks is such a prominent thing in this metagame, and it's really not beneficial at all for your defensive anchor to be 4 times weak to a move that is so over-centralized in this game. Even in the lowest of low tiers, Ledian gets outclassed by Pokemon like Vespiquen, which shares the same typing and has better offenses and defenses than Ledian, and arguably a better move pool. Now, you could argue that Ledian has slightly more utility over Vespiquen, but I really don't see a situation where I would ever use a Ledian over Vespiquen, which is kind of a weird sentence to say, because those are 2 Pokemon that you probably would never consider using. Now, there is also a minor disclaimer here. At the time that I'm recording this video, for standard Smogon singles on Pokemon Showdown, the lowest tier possible is RU, meaning I cannot use Ledian in PU, which you could probably do a better job in PU than RU. I think it's a pretty safe assessment to say. So this Pokemon Showdown replay of me using Ledian will be in the RU tier, and this was the best replay I could have possibly gotten to showcase Ledian. It is a defensive set with light screen, and it actually does a decent job against my opponent's RU team. Now, to go and talk about Ledian in past generations, a lot of Pokemon that are older have seen a lot of changes as the generations went by, especially Generations 2 Pokemon. Now, there was a ton of changes in game mechanics in Pokemon from Generations 2 to 4. Ledian having base 55 special attack stat is higher than its attack stat, so I guess that would technically make it a special attacker, and prior to Generation 4, Ice Punch and Thunder Punch were considered special moves because that's how the physical and special split was prior to Gen 4, which arguably does help Ledian a little bit, so you might have more viability using Ledian in previous generations if you guys battle in previous generations, I guess. However, both of its stab typings being Bug and Flying were physical, so although you do get decent coverage for your more potent attack stat, you do have worse stab moves, if that makes any sense. So it's really not the best thing for Ledian in previous generations. There was definitely a lot of give and take with Ledian throughout the generation. They did also give it Iron Fist in Generation 5, which I guess kind of helps it, because like I said, it does get Thunder Punch, does get Ice Punch, does get a couple of other punch moves, but you only have 35 attack stats, so getting that Iron Fist boost really isn't going to help you out at all. Now, another key factor about using Ledian in previous generations is that you do not have to worry about Stealth Rocks in Generations 2 and Generation 3, which definitely helps Ledian a ton from a defensive standpoint. So to wrap things up about Ledian in a nutshell, I would say throughout the years, throughout the generations, it definitely got better in some aspects, but worse in some aspects. Overall, it's really not a very good Pokemon. I really don't see a situation where I would use this Pokemon over some other Pokemon, even in the lowest of low tiers. Yes, it could be fun to mess around with, and yes, it could be gimmicky, and yes, there could be some situations where you use this Pokemon very effectively, but this is Pokemon, you can use virtually any Pokemon effectively. It's just the fact of the matter that in order for you to use Ledian effectively, you have to either get really lucky or have a really bad opponent. To go over the team that I used in that replay a little bit, obviously the start was Ledian. This is what I found to be the best Ledian set that I was able to run. Roost, Light Screen, Reflect, Air Slash, Max HP, Max Special Defense with a Calm Nature. You have your stab move in Air Slash, you have some good utility in the screens and the Roost. Leftovers also helps take hits as well, and Early Bird just because I figured it was the best to run. Some very good team options I would recommend for Ledian would be Hitmontop. Now again, this is RU because as I'm recording this video for Pokemon Sun and Moon, the lowest tier that is available right now is RU. Hitmontop is RU. It is one of my favorite rapid spinners and it definitely matches up well with Ledian. And then I also just brought some really good wall breakers that can benefit from the screen, such as Clawitzer, Donphan as a Stealth Rock option to help Ledian a little bit more, Ambipom with Fake Out and U-Turn Pressure, Knockoff, which will also help Ledian a bit because I can knock up potential items, and then Espeon with Magic Bounce, which is kind of a weird set, but this was here to bounce back Stealth Rocks or any other hazards that will hinder my Ledian. Now, in terms of other Ledian sets you could potentially use, you could use the same thing as this, but a little bit different with a physical move instead of Air Slash. I feel like you're better off running Air Slash as opposed to Iron Fist and a Punch move because you do get the stab boost, and Air Slash I feel like is a decent move because you do get the flinch chance, which can help you if you're a Ledian, having your opponent be immobilized for one turn. You can also run something like Sub Baton Pass Agility, or just Agility Baton Pass, SD Baton Pass even could be a thing. However, I do think there are better options for Baton Pass even in these lower tiers. So to move on with the ratings, I would give Ledian's offensive rating a 1 out of 5, because this Pokemon has virtually no offensive capabilities whatsoever. Moving on to defense, I'll be a little generous and give it a 2 out of 5, because you do have a 110 special defense, which definitely can be usable, especially in lower tiers. So I'll be a little lenient on that and give it a 2 out of 5. For versatility, I'll also give it a 2 out of 5, which I feel like is being a little bit lenient. Now, the thing with versatility and Movepool is that they tie into each other a lot. And since I guess technically there are multiple different Ledian sets you could run that are all equally as bad, but at the same time equally as good because they are probably the best Ledian sets you can run, I will give its versatility a 2 out of 5. Moving on to Movepool, I will give it a 3 out of 5 because you actually have some decent moves, especially utility options. U-turn, Encore, Knockoff, Agility, Baton Pass, there's definitely some uses there. In terms of overall viability, 1 out of 5. I really don't think this needs an explanation. Ledian is just not a very good Pokemon. There's a lot of better options, even in the lowest of lower tiers, so I really don't recommend using Ledian unless you're just trying to have fun and mess around. So that's going to be it for Ledian. Is Ledian the worst Pokemon? I don't know. Leave a comment down below letting me know what you think. Also, do not forget to leave a like and subscribe. Let me know in the comments down below what Pokemon I want to see featured in this series in the future. So with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. Have a good rest of your day. I will see you guys next time, and bye-bye.